You are standing inside a house that costs $300 to build, has no furnace, no air conditioner, and no moving parts of any kind. It is January. It is 40 outside. Inside it is 70 marred, and the wall is the only reason why. The Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and Holmes County, Ohio, have been building homes like this for over 200 years. Homes that heat themselves through the coldest nights and cool themselves through the hottest afternoons using nothing but clay, straw, and a principle of physics so simple it almost feels like cheating. The material costs pennies per brick. In 48 states, you cannot legally build with it without jumping through a regulatory process that will cost you more than the entire house. But stay until the end of this video, because there is a legal loophole that one woman has used to build 600 of these homes in Texas, and she never asked a single permit office for permission. By the time this is over, you will know exactly how she did it, and whether you can do the same. The first time I walked into an earth-walled home near Millersburg, Ohio, it was the middle of August, 100 tweeters outside. Inside, without a single fan running, it was 74. I pressed my palm flat against the interior wall, and it was warm. Not heated warm, stored warm. The kind of warmth that radiates out of deep stone long after the sun is set. I spent 20 minutes looking for a thermostat before the man who built the house told me there was none. What I was feeling was not mechanical. It was physics. Engineers call it thermal lag. When heat strikes the outer surface of a thick earth wall, it does not pass straight through. It begins a slow migration through 20 inches of dense packed clay at standard residential thickness. That journey takes 8 to 12 hours. Think carefully about what that means in practice. The sun peaks at 2 in the afternoon. The exterior temperature hits its maximum, but the heat that enters the wall at 2 does not reach the interior until 10 or 11 at night. By then, outside temperature has dropped 30 or 40 degrees. The wall releases its absorbed warmth into the house through the coldest hours of the night. Then come morning, the cool night air begins its own slow journey inward, arriving at the interior surface, just as afternoon heat peaks outside. The house runs on a 12-hour delay. It does not use energy to maintain comfort. It uses time. Nothing breaks down. Nothing wears out. Nothing needs a filter replaced or a warranty renewed. The University of Arizona tested this directly and published the results in 2018 in a peer-reviewed journal called Energy and Buildings. They built 2 identical structures side by side, one with Adobe earth walls and one with standard wood frame construction, and monitored both through 10 months of desert conditions. Outside temperatures ranged from 48 to 108 degrees. The Adobe structure maintained a 70-76 interior average, with 40% less temperature variance than the wood frame building. The wood frame house required mechanical cooling all 10 months. The Adobe structure required mechanical cooling for 0 of those months. That study has been cited 47 times in academic literature. It has never been cited once in a building code update proceeding. Hold that fact in your mind, because everything that follows explains why the brick itself costs almost nothing to make. The basic formula is 70 to 80% clay, 15 to 25% sand, and 5 to 10% chopped straw or organic fiber. Mix with water until the mass holds its shape. Press into a wooden mold. Pull the mold off after 24 hours. Set the brick in the sun for 2 weeks. That is the entire manufacturing process. No kiln, no factory, no equipment beyond a mold you can build from scrap lumber in an afternoon. The energy input per brick is roughly 2,000 British thermal units. A conventional fired brick requires 30,000 British thermal units. That is a 15-to-1 ratio before you have stacked a single course. Compressive strength runs between 200 and 600 lb per square inch, depending on the clay at your site. The International Residential Code minimum for load-bearing residential walls is 175 lb per square inch. Adobe exceeds that threshold at most natural clay deposits without any modification at all. If you have clay-heavy soil, the dirt under your feet right now may already be structural grade building material. You could walk outside with a shovel and hold a raw ingredient of a house that will outlast everything on your street by several centuries. Cost per brick, if you dig from your own property, is approximately 3 cents. A 500-square-foot house requires between 4,000 and 6,000 bricks. Total raw material cost is somewhere between $120 and $180. That number is not a typo. Adobe breathes. Moisture moves through the wall as vapor without condensing inside the structure. The EPA estimates that 45% of American homes have mold problems, and the vast majority originate in the wall cavities of framed construction. Those are spaces between layers of material that were never designed to let moisture pass. Adobe has no cavity. It is a single solid mass. It has maintained that integrity in structures that have been standing since before the Spanish arrived in New Mexico. So here is the question that should be bothering you right now. You have a material that costs pennies per brick, that heats and cools without mechanical systems, that outlasts anything the lumber industry sells, and that eliminates the moisture problem destroying nearly half of American homes. Why does almost nobody build with it anymore? The shift did not happen because someone found a better material. It happened because someone found a more profitable one. They did not need a law, a vote, or a single public debate to pull it off. They only needed a pen and a building code that nobody was paying attention to. The first real blow landed in 1927 when the Pacific Coast Building Officials Conference published the first Uniform Building Code. It was written entirely around wood frame and concrete construction. Adobe was not mentioned. Under American building law, that omission carries a precise legal consequence. Any material not addressed by the code requires what is called alternate method approval before you are allowed to break ground. That process costs between $5,000 and $25,000 in engineering fees alone for a material whose total raw cost is $300. The code did not ban Adobe. It buried Adobe under a 100-to-1 regulatory overhead ratio. The killing blow came in 1949. The Federal Housing Administration issued its minimum property standards for mortgage eligibility. One clause required what it called conventional framing using dimension lumber. From that moment, any home not built with lumber and concrete was ineligible for FHA-backed insurance. Without FHA insurance, no bank would issue a mortgage. Without a mortgage, no middle-class American family could afford to build in any alternative material, regardless of how cheap that material was. No congressional vote, no public hearing. FHA administrators drafted it in consultation with the housing industry and signed it into administrative law. One ruling removed owner-built housing from the American mainstream in a single stroke. Then in 1970, the Uniform Building Code finally added an explicit chapter for Adobe. On paper, this looked like progress. In practice, the chapter was engineered to destroy the cost advantage. It mandated steel rebar every 24 inches, both vertically and horizontally through the wall. It required Portland cement stabilization at 3 to 5% by weight. It required concrete bond beams at every floor level. Drilling rebar through Adobe bricks also destroys the thermal mass properties that make the wall work. The chapter did not just make Adobe more expensive, it made it perform worse. Who drafted that chapter? The Portland Cement Association, the trade body representing Lafarge, Holcim, Cemex, Vulcan Materials, and Martin Marietta. Their combined annual U.S. revenue was $18 billion. Every mandate in that chapter generates revenue for their members. That is not speculation. It is a matter of public legislative record. The National Association of Home Builders, representing 150,000 member companies, has opposed every attempt to create natural building pathways at the state and federal level since the 1960s. Their stated concern is consumer protection. Their practical concern is specific. An owner who can build their own home from the ground under their feet does not hire a single NAHB member. The system layers itself. The code omits the material. The approvals mandate additions that eliminate the cost advantage. The mortgage system refuses to finance it. The insurance industry prices it at conventional replacement costs 30 to 100 times the actual value. And the trade associations whose members sell the mandated alternatives funded the committees that wrote the rules. There was a man who saw all of this clearly and paid for it with his career. Hassan Fathi graduated from Cairo University's School of Engineering in 1926 and spent 50 years trying to solve housing poverty with the one material every poor family on earth already had: the ground beneath them. In 1945, the Egyptian government hired him to design a resettlement village near the Valley of the Kings. His design used traditional Nubian adobe with barrel-vaulted ceilings and thick earth walls that kept interiors cool through Egyptian summers without any mechanical assistance. 540 planned homes for 7,000 residents. Total cost to the families moving in: $0. Every brick came from local clay. Every craftsman was local. The government canceled the project after 150 homes were completed. The documented reason, which Fathi laid out in his 1973 book, Architecture for the Poor, was simple. The construction contractors who held the original government housing contract stood to lose everything if his approach spread. They lobbied the housing ministry directly. The project was terminated. Fathi spent the rest of his career building on the margins of an industry that could not profit from his methods. The Smithsonian named his book one of the 20 most important works of architecture of the 20th century. He died in Cairo in 1989. The construction establishment sent no representative to his funeral. The 150 homes he built are still standing 76 years later. The conventional concrete housing built nearby has largely deteriorated or been demolished. New Mexico broke ranks in 1991. Under pressure from the Pueblo communities and the natural building movement, the state adopted its own standalone Adobe building code. The only state in the country with provisions allowing non-reinforced Adobe construction under specific conditions. In more than 30 years under that code, the record shows 0 structural collapses and 0 safety incidents. No steel, no Portland cement in a seismic zone. 30 years of proof that the federal code treats as if it does not exist. The ASTM, the same standards body that certifies every concrete wall built in America, published a formal standard for earthen wall design in 2010 and reaffirmed it in 2016. Building officials in 48 states have never heard of it. Now, here is the thing I have never seen mentioned in a single homesteading book, a single natural building guide, or a single conversation in this niche in 20 years of doing this. Her name is Simone Swan. She came to the Texas-Mexico border in 2008 as a student of Hassan Fathi's methods, and with one conviction. The families in Presidio County, families earning $8,000 to $12,000 a year, priced out of every conventional housing option that existed, did not need a government program or a mortgage lender. They needed a shovel and someone to show them what to do with it. The method is the same one that built Jericho 10,000 years ago. You survey the ground at the building site if the clay content is right. And in the Chihuahuan Desert, it almost always is. You dig. You mix clay with sand and chopped straw in ratios Swan calibrated through 15 years of field work. You add water until the mixture holds its shape. Press it into a wooden form. Pull the form off. and let the Texas sun do the rest. 2 weeks later, you have a building unit that will outlast anything at a hardware store. A team of 4 or 5 people, usually the family who will live in the finished house, stacks those bricks into 18-inch walls, bonded with mud mortar from the same clay. No rebar, no Portland cement. 6 weeks from first dig to move in. Total material cost between $800 and $2,500. Monthly energy bill after move-in, 0. Swan has repeated this process 600 times since 2008. 600 families who own their homes outright. No mortgage, no energy bill, no dependency on any supply chain that can fail them or price them out. Texas building authorities cited her operation 3 times for code violations. She continued building every single time because she is not violating the code. She is building exactly where the code does not reach. The owner-builder exemption. It exists in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. A legal provision allowing individuals to construct their own primary residence without meeting the full International Residential Code standard. No contractor license required, no permit office approval required, no bank required. You dig the clay from the ground under the building site, stack the bricks, and move in. The loophole that produced 600 debt-free homes is the same principle that built every house on Earth for the first 10,000 years of human civilization before the cement industry decided you needed their permission to do it. If you live in Texas, New Mexico, or Arizona, you can legally break ground on an Adobe home tomorrow. The only thing that has ever stood between a family and a home that will outlast everything on their street is a building code written by the people who sell what that family does not need. If that makes you feel something, I want to hear it. Tell me in the comments what would actually stop you from building this way. Not what the code says, what would personally stop you? Because the answers to that question are what this channel is going to spend the next year helping you solve one video at a time. If you believe that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. If this story changed the way you look at the very dirt beneath your feet, please subscribe and like this video. We are dedicated to uncovering the history and the solutions that they have tried to keep hidden. Let's build a future that lasts. Our next investigation into the secrets of the industry is already waiting for you.